And he goes and he says, and in the 5th year, you shall make the release so that you release it in righteousness and uprightness, and you shall be righteous, and all that you plant shall prosper. For this did Enoch, the father of your father, command Methuselah his son, and Methuselah his son Lamech, and Lamech commanded me all the things which your father commanded him. So it's right here, it's telling us that Enoch not only kept the law, but he kept literally the laws for trees and for planting and the Sabbaths, for first fruits. So they had way more instruction than we originally think they had, right? And then he goes on to say, and it says, I also will give you commandment, my sons, as Enoch commanded his son in the first Jubilees, while still living, the 7th in his generation, he commanded and testified to his son and to his son's sons until the day of his death. So we got Enoch's total lifespan of 665 years, actually overlaps with Noah's lifespan. He dies. He actually dies. So he has a day of death, guys. Lived 665 years. Why would we think that Enoch is still alive after thousands of years? Well, it's often because of Hebrews 11:5. Because people think that God took him up. You see how poor translations will really, they'll really mess with your perception of how things work. Now, even if you didn't dig into the text from the Septuagint in Genesis 5, even if you didn't dig into the Greek from Hebrews 11:5, even if you've never read Jubilees or Genesis, First Enoch or Jubilees, if you've never read those books and you were just reading Hebrews 11 by itself, you should be able to, hopefully, a red flag would pop up where you would say, wait a minute, Hebrews 11:5, is it really telling me that Enoch was taken up? And the traditional interpretation of that is that he was taken up into heaven, and that's where he is. And people use that as he's still alive, he's going to be one of the 2 witnesses and all that. But even if we didn't have all this other stuff I showed you tonight, guys, and we're dealing with the chapter itself of Hebrews chapter 11, and we looked for the furthering context in that chapter, what would we find? Because we got chapter 5, talks about Enoch. But if you go all the way down here, it says at the very end of the chapter, it says that all these, and it's speaking about everyone that came before this verse 39, including verse 5, which is Enoch. All these, having gained approval through their faith, did not receive what was promised, because God has provided something better for us, so that apart from us, they would not be made perfect. You cannot ascend to heaven, as even Jesus tells us, right? No man has ascended to heaven except the man who's actually come down from heaven. That's him. Everyone is waiting for the resurrection. Nobody can actually go to heaven before the resurrection at the last trumpet on the day of the Lord. This is when Yeshua returns. It's Revelation 11:15 through 20. It's 11 through 15. It is 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 13 through 18. It's 1 Corinthians 15, verse 50 and 51. The great trumpet. It's Isaiah chapter 27, verse 11 and 12. It's this massive trumpet blow, which is the last trumpet of Revelation, that Yeshua and his angels return, and there's a group of angels that come and pick up the resurrected, because we've been perfected at that moment. We've been raised to incorruptible bodies as we're promised in the covenant. And we're given that moment of perfection, being made whole, right? Whereas no one has. So the writer of Hebrews, writing this letter after Yeshua ascended to heaven, is telling you that everyone he just mentioned in chapter 11, all of them have not been made perfect yet. And when they are made perfect, it's going to happen with us, meaning the guy who's writing the letter. When's he going to be made perfect? It's only at the day of the Lord, the last trumpet. So this is why, even if you didn't have all these tools that I tried to show you guys tonight, you just need the context of Hebrews chapter 11, which should give you a huge red flag and hopefully, give you that investigative feel to try to dig deeper into the rest of, like, wait a minute, what does it mean to be made perfect? You start digging down that rabbit trail of what that means and how that's used in the New Testament, and you realize it's talking about the resurrection. Paul talks about it all over his letters. So, and also Hebrews chapter 10 mentions it as well. And it's everywhere, guys. Because why? What do we know from Hebrews 9:26? It is appointed man once to die, and then the judgment. You see what I'm saying? At that quote unquote judgment, we're going to get resurrected immortal bodies. We're going to get the kind of body that Yeshua received when he was resurrected, one that's eternal, one that we will never sin again. The law of God's written on our heart. All the commandments are written on our heart. We'll never fail to do them again. So this is where we see a lot of teachings in modern day churches that just take stuff way out of context from one verse, Hebrews 11:5, and create an entire narrative around it to say that this dude's still alive. He's been alive for thousands of years. Oh, he must be chilling in heaven somewhere. Yeah, he's probably going to come back as one of the two witnesses or something. Guys, he was a guy that became a priest. Yes, he had some special circumstances by being able to go into the garden and minister there, but that's a job he had to go do. It's to perform for 300 years there. So he's a regular dude that was had a good heart. That means he loved mankind, and the Father chose him to go and be a priest. Who was a priest was supposed to love mankind, because you are selflessly sacrificing your personal life to go and mediate on behalf of men who, many times don't deserve it. See what I mean? So he was a normal dude that was very faithful and obedient. He was taken into the garden because it was still on the ground to minister on behalf of corrupted mankind before the flood. Then he had a day when he actually died. And from everything I've researched and put together, it's before the flood. He had an actual day of his death, as we're literally told from Jubilee 738. Okay, so I like I said, I know that for many of you that are watching this, it may be bursting a bubble that you've held on to for a long time, and I apologize. I can't really do anything about that, but at least I've put together some things tonight that you can go and test for yourself, and you can try to see, wait a minute, is this? Here's some information I may have never seen before. How do I line it up? I've put it on screen for you, the meanings of words and where to find them in the passages, or what translation of how to compare the two. So, it's one of those deals. Hopefully it's to have the truth will propel you forward so that you can learn the scriptures better, as opposed to holding on to the wrong paradigm about something, which would taint, or which would give you the wrong perception or the wrong lens going forward, trying to understand other scriptures. So that's why we're always digging in for context, for clarity.